Malcolm Jamal Warner didn't just die, he left a warning. If something happens to me, Mom, tell the world I wasn't lying. No one listened until his mother found the USB. Hidden in an old coat, it held footage, files, and one chilling folder labeled Shadow Network. And one name kept appearing, Bill Cosby. Now, Cosby is in handcuffs, and what Malcolm left behind wasn't a goodbye, was a blueprint, a mission, a reckoning. Because this wasn't a tragic accident, it was a silencing. And if you think it ends with Cosby, you haven't seen Echo Protocol yet. Malcolm Jamal Warner was meant to grow old. He should have been there to walk his daughter down the aisle, to take one final bow under the spotlight, to live out his days with dignity and peace. But instead, his life ended in silence that lingered, heavy and unanswered. That silence has now been broken. It began with a fragile voice, one worn down by years of mourning, yet strengthened by truth. Pamela Warner, Malcolm's mother, stood before the world with tear-stained eyes and trembling hands, holding a USB drive that was never meant to surface. What she carried wasn't just data, it's evidence. Her voice, strained but certain, did what investigators failed to do. It got a man arrested. Today, Bill Cosby is in handcuffs. And the story of Malcolm's death is no longer being told as a tragic accident, it's being re-examined as something far darker. Something that demands justice. The world stood still as Pamela Warner, weary and tear-streaked, stepped into the spotlight she never asked for. Her voice cracked, but her words were sharp-edged in grief and unshakable truth. He didn't drown, she said. He was drowned by power, by silence, by the very machine built to protect predators and bury the brave. The evidence. She carried the files, the footage, the folder no one was meant to see was real, and the heartbreak, that was undeniable. Hidden deep in her son's belongings, she had found it, a final video, a chilling memo, a digital time capsule of danger. They thought the ocean would swallow the truth. They thought Malcolm's story would die with him, but they underestimated a mother's fire. And now, the same system that tried to erase him is cracking under the weight of what it tried to hide. This wasn't just a headline, it was a rupture in the culture, a reckoning in real time. Bill Cosby is in handcuffs, and the world is finally listening. But this is only the beginning. Because Malcolm didn't leave behind a goodbye, he left a blueprint, a mission encoded in his final message, now roaring through screens and shattering the illusion. Outside the federal courthouse in Los Angeles, flashing cameras swarmed, fans wept in the streets, and reporters swarmed the barricades. The black SUV rolled up like a funeral procession. The door creaked open. Bill Cosby emerged expressionless, surrounded by federal agents. This wasn't fiction. This wasn't fantasy. This was justice catching up. For years, whispers floated, Reddit threads, hushed warnings behind closed doors, but few imagined it would ever come to this. Until Pamela Warner said the words no mother should ever say. He killed my son. Her voice didn't perform. It didn't need to. It was raw, real, and it hit with the force of truth sharpened by grief. She wasn't there for revenge. She was standing for justice, not only for Malcolm, but for every soul silenced behind red carpets and buried beneath non-disclosure agreements. And just like that, the silence fractured. The world remembered Malcolm Jamal Warner not just as Theo Huxtable, the charming boy on America's favorite sitcom, but as a man whose laughter once filled living rooms across generations. On July 20, 2025, that laughter was extinguished. Authorities claimed he drowned on a peaceful beach in Costa Rica. No witnesses. No struggle. No questions. Case closed. Or so they thought. But mothers don't forget. Not the tremor in their child's voice. Not the unease tucked between casual words. Not the warning he gave her. If something happens to me, Mom, tell the world I wasn't lying. And then she found it, the USB, hidden inside the lining of an old winter coat, sealed in an envelope that read, in case something happens to me. Her breath stalled as she plugged it in. What she saw unraveled her world. Confidential memos, wire transfers, voice recordings, NDAs, an entire architecture of control and concealment. Buried within the files was a folder simply titled, Shadow Network. In every document, every page, one name rose again and again, underlined, circled, repeated. Bill Cosby. At first, it made no sense. Why would her son's name be linked to a once-revered television icon? But then came the video. Malcolm sat alone, pale and tired. No makeup, no stage lights. Just truth. If you're watching this, he said, I didn't make it, or someone made sure I wouldn't. He spoke of a system, a coordinated structure of silence. A machine engineered not just to cover up abuse but to erase the witnesses. They don't just silence you, he whispered, they erase you. They rewrite your story until no one even asks what really happened. Pamela dropped to her knees. The truth hit her harder than grief ever could. Her son hadn't died. He had been eliminated. And she held the evidence in her hands. She marched straight to the Department of Justice. She handed over everything. The tapes, the memos, the digital trail of destruction. And then nothing. Silence. Weeks passed. Until her phone buzzed in the middle of the night. One message. No name, no reply. Just check the news. And there it was. A breaking headline that shattered the internet. Bill Cosby, under federal investigation in Warner case. Within 48 hours, a warrant. Within 72, Cosby was in custody. Pamela watched the news, not with joy, but with quiet, shattered resolve. Years of being ignored had finally cracked open. Her son was finally being heard. Outside the courthouse, a crowd gathered, candles, murals, posters. One read. He didn't drown. He was drowned. Clips from Malcolm's final video began leaking online. Then came the whistleblower's studio assistants, legal staff, a former late-night producer. One voice message said it all. We were told to let the footage disappear, but he knew what he had. He was going to go public. Pamela Warner was no longer just grieving. She was leading a movement. News outlets plastered her face. Social media amplified her every word. He wasn't just killed, she said. He was erased. And I will not stop until the world knows who did it. And this time, the world listened because the machine that once protected the powerful was finally being seen for what it was. At its core, the man once dubbed America's dad, now facing a far more sinister title. His legal team stumbled. PR firms vanished. Executives stopped returning calls. But the files were out. The public had the truth, and no amount of scrubbing could undo it. They thought killing the messenger would kill the message. But Pamela didn't just protect the message, ignited it. And what she sparked set fire to an empire of lies. Cosby was arrested, and Malcolm's legacy was only beginning. The system thought this would fade, that Pamela would fall silent, that the outrage would last a week and disappear into the feed. But this wasn't outrage. It was a mother's scream echoing through a broken world. And it was loaded with evidence powerful enough to bring down giants. The DOJ unsealed the first vault of what's now called the Warner Archive. And the world finally saw the truth. A memo dated June 18, 2025, 2 days before Malcolm's death was labeled crisis containment, Warner escalation. Inside, chilling language, strategic plans to discredit Malcolm, to spin a false narrative, and if needed redirect through tragedy. A haunting line read, "The ocean remains a viable optic." This wasn't metaphor. It was murder masked as misfortune. Audio files revealed secret meetings. Network execs saying things like, "He's not a kid anymore. He's tracking patterns. If he talks, we're finished." And another voice responding, "Then let's make sure he doesn't." The seventh video broke Pamela. Footage from a hidden camera. Malcolm, alone, scrolling, visibly anxious. He looks to the webcam and says, "I shouldn't be recording this. But if I don't, no one will believe me. Not even my mom." He whispers into a recorder. They said, "I'm risking everything. But what do I do? Stay quiet. Let them win." A knock at the door. He flinches. The screen cuts. Pamela never saw him alive again. Social media went into mourning. Not just rage, but grief. Grief that we didn't see what Malcolm had been carrying. Hashtags flooded every platform. Hashtag Justice for Malcolm hit 10 million in under 2 days. Protests erupted in every major city. Graffiti on Sunset Boulevard. He didn't drown, he was silenced. Murals appeared overnight. His face next to the words. They erased him. We remember. Even celebrities began to speak. One sitcom actor tweeted, "He told me. I didn't listen. I should have." Another went live, sobbing. "He tried to warn us. He really did." Meanwhile, the DOJ kept digging. What they found was darker than anyone imagined. A manual titled, The Silence Machine. 2.0 to 32 pages of tactics to destroy someone without laying a hand on them. Fabricated scandals. Smear campaigns. Buried news. Fake mental health reports. Local police paid off. Victims gagged with hush money. This wasn't about one man. It was an industry fortified by fear. And Malcolm. He had cracked it open, then came the second leak from inside one of the networks mentioned in the archive. A mysterious hard drive. No name, no note, just a folder labeled buried. It held transcripts, strategy memos, and a risk analysis from Cosby's old PR firm. One document read: if Warner publishes, activate mitigation protocol. If extraction fails, contingency in place. That word again, contingency. Cold, calculated, deadly. Pamela read it again and again, holding her son's hoodie, whispering, they planned it. My God, they planned it all. Cosby's legal team cried foul, claimed hackers, deep fakes, smear jobs. But then came one final clip. Malcolm, walking alone, unaware his recorder was still running. He mumbled to himself, they said I have a choice. Be quiet and live. Speak. And he stopped, laughed, brokenly. I'm not scared anymore. I'm just tired. But I won't be silent. Pamela posted the clip with a single caption. My son didn't drown. He was drowned by silence, by money, by monsters. And now, the country is listening. Senators are calling for hearings. Executives are lawyering up. And the story Malcolm died trying to tell is finally being told. Not as a tragedy, but as a battle cry. A special counsel had been appointed. Television networks scrambled to open internal investigations. Federal prosecutors made it clear, Bill Cosby's arrest was merely the prologue, but Pamela Warner wasn't finished. Not yet. She had one final truth to share. A letter. Malcolm's last message to her, handwritten and quietly devastating. If you're reading this, I didn't make it, but that's okay. I know you'll fight, and I know the truth will outlive me. I love you, Mom. Don't let them erase me. She carries that letter with her now creased, tear-stained, nearly worn through, but it's more than paper. It's a promise. In a world where Cosby once ruled the screen, his mugshot now circles the globe. It's the most shared image online, his expression blank, hollow, trapped not just behind bars but by the truth he spent decades burying. Malcolm didn't live to see this day, but every file he left, every recording, every notit, all lead here, because Malcolm wasn't just an actor. He was a warning system, a whistleblower in a world of whispers, a son who saw the rot beneath the glitter and refused to close his eyes. And when his voice was silenced, his mother picked up the megaphone. This isn't just a criminal case, it's a cultural reckoning, a revolution, a reminder that you can take the messenger, but the message will always find another way to speak. The courtroom was heavy with a silence that didn't soothe it, suffocated, the kind of quiet that weighs on your chest, that leaves no air for denial. Cosby sat still at the defense table, flanked by lawyers who no longer carried the swagger of invincibility. Across from him sat Pamela, her spine straight, her grip tight around the letter Malcolm left behind. This wasn't just a trial, it was a moment of national accountability. Cameras weren't allowed inside, but word moved faster than walls. One by one, witnesses came forward. Former employees, studio insiders, retired executives. Each voice chipped away at the illusion. We were told to stay silent. We were paid to forget. He knew too much, and they knew it. But the final blow didn't come from a paper trail. It came from a man no one expected, Cosby's former bodyguard. His voice shook as he testified. I wasn't hired to protect Malcolm, I was hired to follow him. Then he said the sentence that echoed like a detonation. The day he died, I got a call. One sentence, stand down. It's handled. Audible gasps filled the courtroom. Even the judge sat frozen. Cosby stayed silent. What could he possibly say? Everything Malcolm feared, everything he tried to document was now being spoken aloud. No more secrets. No more denials. Outside, crowds lined the streets, holding candles, signs, and Malcolm's photo high above their heads. Some sobbed, some prayed, others simply stood moving and silent. But this silence carried meaning now. This silence spoke. Online. The digital world buzzed like a live wire. Hashtags surged back into the trend cycles. Hashtag justice for Malcolm. Hashtag he didn, single quotes T-drown. Hashtag the machine is falling, but what came next would shift the ground beneath the entire industry. Pamela had held something back. Something she wasn't ready to share until now. A second hard drive. Not meant for the courtroom. Not meant for headlines. Meant for the people. And this one didn't just name names, it revealed the architecture. It exposed how the cover-ups worked, how silence was bought, how reputations were sanitized, how whistleblowers were tracked and erased. Surveillance tapes. Meeting transcripts. Covert deals signed between networks and law enforcement. Documents stamped, "Do not disclose, internal use only." At the center of it all, a chilling blueprint called Echo Protocol, a digital kill switch, an operation designed to erase victims and preserve predators, to flood the media with noise, discredit accusers, and, when all else failed, make the witnesses vanish. Malcolm had mapped it, pieced it together like a puzzle, only he could solve. And now, Pamela held the final piece. She uploaded it, all of it, every file, every signature, every name. No filters, no redactions, no hesitation. The internet didn't just react, it ruptured. Anchors froze mid-broadcast. PR firms withdrew from clients. Executives disappeared overnight. Entire media empires flickered dark. And the dominoes began to fall. Name after name, studio after studio, but none louder than the first. 3 weeks after his arrest, Bill Cosby was officially charged not just with conspiracy and obstruction, but as an accessory to murder. The media twisted themselves into knots. Some called it shocking. Others tried to soften the edges with alleged, but the world had already heard the truth in Malcolm's own voice, in the evidence he left behind, and in the defiance Pamela refused to abandon. Pamela never wanted a platform. She never asked for an audience, but she became the face of something bigger than herself. Bigger than Malcolm. She gave one interview. Just one. She stood beneath the weight of the world, clutching her son's photo like a shield. "They tried to silence him," she said, "but all they did was give him a louder voice." Then she walked away. No applause, no spin, just truth. And from that truth, Malcolm's legacy began to rise. Universities began preserving his files as historical archives. Advocacy centers were founded in his name. Artists turned city walls into shrines. Murals blazed across the country, his face surrounded by fire, and the words, "You can kill the messenger, but not the message." In his hometown, a street was renamed Warner Way. What began as a whisper is now a roar, and the message Malcolm gave his life to protect is no longer hidden. It is everywhere. The folder Malcolm once named Shadow Network is no longer just a buried archive, it's now required reading in law schools. Dissected as the landmark case that forced Hollywood to confront its darkest truths. But amidst the global headlines, congressional hearings, and digital revolutions, the most powerful moment wasn't broadcasted, it happened quietly, in the dim light of a single candle. Deep in the files of that second hard drive was a video untouched, unseen, labeled simply, final_FAL.mpp4. Pamela didn't open it immediately. She waited, holding back until the noise had settled and accountability had begun. Then, one night, she sat alone, opened the laptop, and pressed play. Malcolm appeared on screen, worn down, but calm. There was no panic in his eyes, no fear left to fight. He smiled gently, looked straight into the lens, and said, "Hey Mom, if you're watching this, I guess it's over. Or maybe it's just beginning." He paused, took a breath, and continued. "I didn't do this to be a hero. I did it because someone had to. You always told me to speak when it matters. Well, this matters." His voice cracked, but he kept going. "They tried to drown me in silence, but I had you. And I knew you'd finish what I started." He looked away, then back into the lens one last time. "I love you, Mom. I'm sorry. But thank you for being the loudest voice I've ever known." And then the video ended. Pamela didn't cry. She closed the laptop, kissed the letter he'd left her, and whispered, "You weren't erased. You're etched into history." Today, the world no longer remembers Malcolm Jamal Warner only as a star. He is a symbol, a burning reminder that even truth buried in silence can still rise, still blaze, still awaken a sleeping world. Cosby remains behind bars, but the bigger victory was never his arrest. It was the exposure. The collapse of the invisible system that protected predators, silenced victims, and spun tragedy into PR strategy. That system cracked because one son refused to stay quiet and because one mother refused to let him be forgotten. This isn't an ending. It's a reckoning, a signal to every predator hiding behind contracts, every executive who buried the truth beneath NDAs, every machine built on fear. Your time is running out. The silence is broken, and the message is louder than ever. Because Malcolm didn't leave behind a scandal, he left behind a roadmap, and now we're following it. If you've made it this far, you already know, this isn't just a story. It's a warning. A scream that rose from the grave and refuses to be buried again. Malcolm didn't die in silence. He died because of silence. He spoke because he exposed what others only whispered about. And though Bill Cosby now sits behind bars, do not believe for a second that this ends here. The system that hunted Malcolm is still breathing, still circling, still looking for the next voice to crush. Unless we stop it, unless we make this moment echo. So don't scroll away. Speak his name. Comment justice for Malcolm. Share this story. Mirror it, repost it. Let the machine know we hear him now, and if this video disappears, you'll know why. But they can't erase all of us. They thought killing the messenger would kill the message, but now you carry it. And it's your turn to make them hear it. Because Malcolm didn't leave behind a goodbye. He left behind a mission. And now it's yours.